Can you see these gorgeous, beautiful white and wholemeal ciabatta style rolls? And that is what we are covering today. I'm going to show you step by step how to make these absolute beauties in your very own kitchen at home. You don't need any fancy equipment, you just need a little bit of time and patience, and you too can, oh my god, honestly, these smell insane. You too can have these fantastic rolls. In fact, I want to crack one open so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, just look at that crumb. So if you're interested in learning how to make this beautifully crumbed ciabatta style roll, well then you're in the right place. It's time to grab your apron and get ready to cook. This is Dishes with Del, and these are gorgeous little brown and white ciabatta rolls. So we've got our aprons on and we're ready to go. But what we are going to cover here are the things that go into it and some of the problems that as home cooks or bakers we come up against all the time. So the first problem is often the yeast. Now, if you don't bake much at home, there's a high chance that you bought some like this and you haven't baked with it in I don't know how long. There is a really good probability that it's kind of started to not be as active as it should be. So if you've had it open for more than a year, I generally say get rid of it. I'm not a huge fan of single-use stuff, but when it comes to dried yeast, it comes often in boxes, which are like a 7-gram pouch, which is perfect for home baking. And it means that each time that you've got the perfect amount in a sachet, ready to go, and you're not opening a whole packet like this. But if you have opened a packet like this, your number one thing you're gonna do, give it a smell. Does it smell yeasty? And if you bake a lot or don't bake a lot, you'll still know what that smell is. I don't know, smells weird, but you would know if there was not much smell there, that there's a high chance that your yeast is past its best. You should get rid of it and go buy some new stuff. And the second problem that we come up against yeast is with this ingredient, our water. If it's not warm enough, it's not gonna bloom properly. And so if it doesn't bloom properly, we're not gonna get rise in our dough. So we'll cover a little bit of this. We'll make sure you've got the right temperature water. And then finally, we're gonna cover flour. We're gonna make 2 types today. We're making white ones and we're gonna make wholemeal ones. Both utterly delicious. But when it comes to wholemeal flour, we have a slightly different hydration because this has more bits in it, which means it needs a little bit more water to become fully hydrated. And also what's great about making these ciabatta style rolls at home is that we need no fancy equipment. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a mixer, a fancy dough hook, absolutely anything. You just need a large bowl and a set of digital scales, because we do need to weigh this at a small weight, and it's much better if it's done by weight than by a teaspoon or a tablespoon, because you will always get consistently the right results. All these tips and tricks have come from my 20+ years of being a professional chef. And believe me, I've made enough bread to sink a ship. So I hope that I can impart some of my knowledge so that you can make fluffy, great, delicious ciabatta rolls at home yourself. So let's get into getting these doughs together and the first easy part of this recipe. First thing that we need to do to make these delicious soft ciabatta style rolls is bloom our yeast. So this is when I was talking about the yeast. This is an important step to do because it will tell you whether or not your yeast is still active. So if once you've done this bit and it doesn't look like what I'm going to show you, you know that your yeast is probably not great and you might want to go get some more from the supermarket. And because I always want to make sure that you're winning at home and I don't want you falling at the first hurdle. So let's get this bloomed. I'll show you what it looks like and then you can have a look and see whether yours does too. So I'm going to take my set of digital scales and I'm going to weigh out my 5 grams of yeast in both my bowls for my 2 doughs. And then I'm going to add 355 mils of water, which you can measure in the jug, or if you add the bowl to the scale, make sure you tare it. That means take it back to 0. You can also weigh the water because it's the same weight as it is in millage. So they're both weighed out, and what I've done is just given them a little whisk so that the yeast can start to break down. It will take a few minutes for that yeast to dissolve into the water. It will be slightly foamy, nice and cloudy, and you won't see any of them little bits left in the bottom of the bowl. So let's leave that for 5 minutes and then we can add our flours. But we will talk about the water while that's happening. So with your water, when you're activating yeast, you want to make sure that it's just over blood temperature, because if it's too hot, it will kill your yeast. So a great way to test is pop in your finger, and basically you just want to be able to feel the difference between the water and your finger. Now it might sound very strange what I'm saying there, but if you were to put your finger into boiling water, you 100% would know that your finger was in boiling water because it would start to hurt. But when you add your finger to slightly warm water, you can just notice a slight difference. So why don't you do a little test at home, have a few different temperature waters, pop your finger in and see what I'm talking about. Let me know in the comments section down below if you're going to give that a try, because it's a great way to know if your water is at room temperature and ready to go, or it's too hot and it's going to kill your yeast. It's been about 7 minutes, so let's have a quick look in this bowl and see what it looks like. As you can see here, it's all puffed up a little bit and come to the surface. We give it a good whisk and you really can't see much left in the bottom of these bowls. So let's give this one a look too. It's all pretty much dissolved. It almost leaves like a streaky cloudiness behind, meaning that nearly all of it has dissolved into the water, and actually you can smell the yeastiness of it. And when I say yeastiness, it's kind of like, you know, beer brewing or something like that. It has a smell that comes with baking bread. So now it's bloomed and we'll add the flowers. Now, classic, I forgot to talk about our other ingredient, the oil. You know, this is why it's important that you always follow a recipe. And if you're looking for this recipe, head to my website. It's in the description box down below and you can find everything you need there. I probably should have gone and had a look myself, because then I wouldn't have forgotten about the oil. Now, you can add olive oil or veg oil. And the importance of oil, I think the reason I forgot about it is because it's such a small amount, but it does serve an important purpose. When you add oil to bread, it means that it makes it softer, gives it a tender crumb. It means that when you bake it in the oven, you're going to get a better color on it. And the way that the oil makes that crumb more tender is that it coats the protein, so it means that actually not as much gluten can form. And when you have that, that is what creates a really chewy loaf. So imagine something like a sourdough, very chewy. This, not so chewy. And if you're interested in sourdough baking, head on over to my website. You might find something there that you might like the looks of. So head to the website to get this recipe and lots of other information about the wonderful sourdough bread if you're looking for a chewier, not so tender crumbed loaf. And also with adding oil, it means that your bread is not going to go as quickly stale, because the oil doesn't evaporate like the water does, and that's why your bread goes stale. So that's enough of the science lesson. Let's get on to making this. So the first one we're going to make is the wholemeal loaf, so that we can talk a little bit about this flour and what we need to do a little bit differently from when we make it with the white. So let's get the other two ingredients we need in here, which is the salt, the flour, and the oil. I just said 2 again, I meant 3. So we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of the olive oil. I've put the bowl on the scales, I've turned it on and tared it so it says 0. Always make sure it says 0 before you add anything else into the bowl. And we're gonna add about 10 grams of salt. And before we add in the flour, we'll give this a little whisk. And the reason we don't add the salt and the oil before, especially the salt, is it can inhibit the yeast. So that's why we add it in now when we're adding in the flours. And so finally, we're gonna add in the flour. We're gonna add in 300 grams of the wholemeal flour, and I'm still gonna add about 100 grams of the white flour. That is because if I made this full wholemeal flour, it would be very dense. It would still be delicious. So, you know, if you are making it at home, you can go all out for the brown flour. But if you were, I would suggest, as it says on the recipe, that you cut it down a little bit, because as I said in the beginning, wholemeal flour, because it has that, it still has some of the wheat germ left in it, it has all them bits, it means that it takes more to hydrate it. So the same amount of brown flour and the same amount of white flour would need slightly different amounts of water to fully hydrate them. And when you fully hydrate your dough, it means that you can work work with it better, it's softer, it ends up with a nicer dough at the end. All of them things we want to make sure we get, because if you're making these for the first time, the last thing we want is for them not to turn out great and you never make bread again. Because making stuff at home is always fantastic, often cheaper and filled with all the great stuff. So we're going to get the flour into this guy, and I'll show you what I mean about the hydration. We're also going to weigh out the stuff for the white one too, so that we can compare the pair side by side, so you know what I'm talking about. Always make sure that before you start adding in your flour, your scales are at 0, because mine had turned off. So we're going to add in the flour and the plain flour, and we're just going to mix it together with a spoon. Super simple, super easy. Then we're going to do the same with the white. I'm going to add my salt and my olive oil, add in the white flour and mix it all together. Then our 2 doughs are done. And there we have it, our 2 doughs mixed and done. As you saw there, just did it with a spoon. Don't even need to get your hands in at this point. You just need to make sure that it's all mixed together and that it all looks like it's incorporated properly, which it is. And then we're just going to sit a tea towel over the top, leave it for half an hour, and we're going to come back and give it a fold. This is where things start to get really easy, really simple. I mean, we've done the hardest bit here, and imagine if I wasn't talking and you were doing it at home, you probably would have had this done in about 5 minutes, because also you more than likely wouldn't be doing 2 doughs, you'd only be doing 1. It's fast and efficient. The wholemeal mix actually has 50 less grams of flour in it than the white one does, but you will see the 2 consistencies are nearly identical. This needs extra water to hydrate, as I said before. So this is the brown dough. It does have a tiny bit more tack to it. As you can see here, there's a little bit left on my hands, as opposed to the white dough. But this also, a little bit tacky to the fingers. They almost have the exact same consistency. And this is what you're looking for. Something soft, all mixed together and looking fabulous. So we'll take the spoons out, cover them up, and set our timer for 30 minutes. And that's it. See you then. So half an hour has passed. These doughs have just been sat there doing nothing. Let's have a quick look at them, shall we? I mean, they don't look much different, but I'm going to show you that they are. So now with a wet hand, let's have a look at this. As you can see, it started to form a slaggy dough like that. Let's have a look at the white one. Same again. These little bits have started to form. So you can see there, the flour is hydrated. It's coming together in a dough. And what we need to do is just give them a little pull, a fold, and a turn. We're going to do that twice. We're going to cover them back up, and we're going to leave it for another half an hour. Over the next hour and a half, we'll do that 2 more times, and then it's time to shape and bake. So always make sure it's with a wet hand, and I like to pick one corner up, fold it over, pick the other corner up, fold it over, pick the other corner up, fold it over, turn it upside down and form it into a little bit of a ball. And as we do these folds and turns over the next hour and a half, more gluten will form, the stretchier it will become, and the more dough-like it will look. You can see here the slight different consistencies between the white and the brown loaf and the brown dough. The white just has slightly more food for the water and the yeast to eat, meaning you get a slightly stretchier dough, which is why often brown bread does have a different consistency from white. Each time when I fold these, you can see slight differences in the dough. A few bubbles are appearing, it's becoming easier to stretch, the gluten is working. When you're shaping it in the bowl, it's becoming tighter, and you can see it again the next time we do it. More bubbles, the dough not so slack, easier to work together, and that brown especially, much more gluten has been worked, and the dough is way stretchier compared to what it was in the beginning, where it almost looked like it would be tearing. And we've finally made it. We've made it to the end of the shaping and forming. Voila. Oh, they look lovely. A little bit like I was saying during the shaping process and stuff like that, you're starting to see bubbles form. The dough is becoming easier to stretch. You're getting a little bit more of that window pane effect. All them things, the dough's holding its shape a little bit more. I'm going to show you these two so we can have a look as they are in the bowls before we do anything to them. So you can really see now here in this white dough, lots of little bubbles. And even though much harder to see in the brown dough, I don't know whether you can see just here. You see like this little bubble. You will see it in the brown dough, but it's not as pronounced as it is in the white. So now we're going to tip these out onto the side and we're going to shape them ready for baking. They're nearly done. I know that this process is a little bit long, but you can get it working. You only have to come back to it every half an hour and it is only a few minutes of working. So I know a little tedious in time, but always worth it. So what we're going to do is just dust the bench a little. I'll make my hands slightly damp again, just to get the dough out. And it just means it's a little bit easier to work with, and the same with the white. If you've seen any of my other videos about making bread, some of which I've added up here, there's like focaccia, we've got like pita breads, we've got all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I've added some of the videos up here, go and have a look at them. But I always say when working with bread, it is a little bit practice makes perfect, because knowing what your dough feels like and looks like is always part of the process. And sometimes without repetition, you really don't know what that is. So as you can see here, I've heavily floured the base and the top. And what you want to do is just move that around, just make sure it's all under there. We're not going to roll this or anything. We are literally just going to pat it out into a rectangular kind of shape, like that. That's it. That's all you need to do. We don't want to knock out lots of this air that we've just been incorporating and making sure is all nicely in there. Same with the brown, but as you can see here, this dough is a little tighter, and that is the nature of brown bread. It does have a slightly tighter texture, so you will have to pull it ever so slightly more to get it into a bit more of that rectangular shape. You can even lift it a little to pull it. Same here. There we go. And again, even where we've spread it out here, you can see the bubbles on the surface of this dough. So hopefully we're going to have a nice little airy ciabatta style roll. And all I'm going to do here is now cut it into 6. So I'm going to go down the middle. And then all you need to do is lift them up onto your tray that you will bake them on even. Oh, I really didn't do a very good job here of cutting these. Oh, bugger. As you can see, it is quite a sticky dough, but with all that moisture in there, hopefully we're going to get some lovely air bubbles. And now, you know, because we're baking at home, not everyone has lots of trays, you know, and stuff like that. So I've just turned this one upside down and I'm going to bake it like that, because if I put this baking paper and sat it in the roasting tray, these guys aren't going to get very good colour. They're not going to get the full effect of the heat in the oven. So just invert your tray, just as long as it's not massively curved or anything like that, you should be good. And again, we're just going to pop on the rolls, and that is it. And I'm just going to cover them up with some tea towels, and we're going to leave them there for another half an hour. We're going to turn the oven on at the same time to 210 degrees, so that when they've had their moments rising, that oven is good and hot. It's going to go in and we're going to get lovely crisp ciabattas. You can see here they're just looking lovely and bubbly and absolutely fabulous. And even on the brown as well. So we'll cover these up with a tea towel, timer back on, and we'll see them in half an hour. So they're out the oven. We've got this bad boy cut in half, and oh my God, it just smells absolutely delicious. I can't wait to get some butter on this. And there is nothing more important than lashings of delicious butter, all piled up on top of your bit of bread. And even better, because it's still warm out the oven, it's gonna melt right in. Oh, there is nothing better than some homemade bread. Oh my God. Yum. I don't think it gets any better than that. Sensational. I could just eat all of these right now. As I briefly touched on a little bit before though, things take time and practice, and they might not turn out exactly like this the very first time you make them, but if you make them again, you then will know what you're looking for, and I bet you'll end up with a slightly looser crumb. Each and every time you will get better at making these. So before I continue to eat all of that one, let's have a quick look inside the brown one too. Oh, I mean, great texture too. Obviously with a brown, you're always gonna get a slightly tighter crumb. Oh, but it smells delicious. Let's get some butter on it. Oh, just great. Oh, and that too. Nutty, delicious. Oh, so good. And what's great about these, make a whole batch, put them in the freezer. That way, you'll have fresh, homemade bread each and every time you want it. You just gotta take it out and defrost it. But that's it for today. Make sure you let me know in the comment section down below, have you enjoyed this? I am gonna be doing a little bread series, so if there's any kind of bread that you wanna learn how to make, drop it in there too. And maybe I'll cover it soon. But this is it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I really hope that you make some of these at home too, because so bloody good. See you all next week, and until then, have a good one. Ciao for now.